All right, we're back for another one. And today I've got some awesome guests. We're really fortunate to have Adam and Lauren here from Traction. They did an amazing report on AI that I thought was really fascinating. We're going to dive into that, maybe talk about the Ravens. We'll kind of see where it goes. But Lauren, Adam, you want to introduce yourselves and we'll get going?
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm the CEO, founder of Traction. I actually started this in 2001, so I've been at it for quite a while. It's 25 years next month, so we'll be celebrating. But I come from the design side of the business. I was a creative, and I'm also a writer, and really have always been from day one really passionate about how technology and marketing principles come together, and how we can leverage it to unlock growth for our clients.
Awesome.
And I'm Lauren Evans. I reside in the DC metro area, hence the Ravens comment. And I lead client services at Traction, and I've been here for about 5 years. But before that, I led marketing teams at Lululemon for a decade. And so I'm super passionate about how brands grow and the way that happens in an organic way, and then how technology layers on top of it to help amplify what really matters most with being customer obsessed. And so the last 5 years at Traction, I've been taking that and applying it to all different, that zeitgeist type focus to all different types of industry. And it's been really fun to see what's possible outside of fashion retail.
I love it. Great. Well, I'm a big Lululemon fan. I did not know that until we met. So my daughter and I go there frequently. So we'll have to talk about that some other time. But let's jump into the report. So, and I'll put this in the notes on YouTube. But this is called the Future Proof Project: Practical Guide for Marketing in 2026. And how did this come about? I found this story fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit about how it come about? And then I'd love for you to also just talk a little bit about this idea of experimentation velocity, like increasing the amount of experimentation that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the beginning of the Future Proof Project was about 4 years ago that we started the Future Proof Project. And it was really driven by the fact that there was quite a bit of emerging technology coming out at the time. It was that conversation then was like the metaverse, blockchain, AR, MR, VR, AI. And it was like, what's going to happen? Are we going to have all these NFT? Like there was all sorts of things. And, we shed some layers there. And what really, came out as what was going to be lasting and imminent was, taking artificial intelligence and all the different ways that it shows up and how much that was accelerating. And one of the other things that we knew is that none of us had 10,000 hours in AI. Nobody did. And so, and everyone in organizations, they're looking at their CMO, their senior marketing leaders, and saying, what do we do? What do we want to do with this? Or what's going to happen? And not everyone had they didn't have all the answers. And so we wanted to create a community where we could really invite those senior leaders to come in and be learners, to not know the answer. And for that to be a kind of like the ticket to get in is you're curious and you want to learn. And so we're going to learn together. We're going to bring leaders from all different industries in to learn from each other. And then Traction, what we really brought to the table was we created the space for that, and also brought in and identified experts at the client level, clients that were doing an incredible job of, let's say, this experimentation velocity or anything right in regards to changing their environment based on AI. Also, like vendors who were creating something really cool, because there's about tens of thousands
a million vendors.
You don't know. You're like, is this guy a carpetbagger? Like, is this guy just trying to use a beta test on me? Who are these people? Right. And so, like, bringing in humans that and solutions that we had determined would be really helpful for our clients to know about. And so then having those conversations and then listening to those leaders talk to each other about what's working, what's not working, what are you coming up against in your organization? What do you feel like you need to get more of to be successful? And the experimentation velocity part of that is, there's different risk appetites at different organizations and different, industries. Retail is not going to be the same as financial services. Healthcare is not going to be the same as engineering or whatever that is. And And so getting leaders comfortable with, we need to have a velocity of experimentation and be okay with kind of a fast fail, and not failure due to negligence, but like try something, learn from it, try something, learn from it, and do that in smaller ways to be able to prove out what it is that you think you can scale effectively, so that you can start to take advantage of the benefits of emerging tech as it relates to all the different kinds of AI.
Yeah, you need to have this agile minded approach, right? Like agile development, or agile design is all about kind of building, releasing, seeing what works, iterating upon that. And you need to do that now within your organization, right? Like, we've all kind of spent the last year or two playing around as individuals. How do we get better at using ChatGPT? Oh, look, it's, I can do more than just, write an email. I can develop a plan or whatever it may be that, but we need to now operationalize that for our business and share these best practices. We call it building an operating system. Traction is doing this for, how we operate and how we're executing marketing services for our clients, and helping them implement them for themselves. So getting to that experimentation velocity and having this elevation, where you're building upon your learning and taking the next step, is how you're going to accelerate into the future.
Yeah. It strikes me a little bit, and the report had some of this, is that, I think it was the woman who was formerly at Nike, which is no small feat to kind of try to wrangle that piece, I'm sure. And I think what was interesting, to your point, is like, how do you get these ideas implemented in the right way? And she had some really interesting notions around that, which is like, I think, a lot of times technology kind of leads, and then you have to like revert back to human first solutions. And how are people dealing with that? And it sounds like you guys are doing a little bit of work in that space too. Are you having to kind of wrangle people around like, look, like technology is basically do whatever you want it to outside those carpetbaggers that Lauren talked about. So how do you get the organization to think about it? Like, here's a focused solution. Let's try this, see what happens. Here's a good use case versus a, kind of like use case that doesn't really add any business value.
Yeah. So I'll give an example of how we're doing it at Traction. We've been documenting our workflows, right? And, our perspective, and I think the right perspective, is that, to really get to the great outcomes, you need both experts using AI and enhancing their expertise, making them into superhumans, right? So, one of the things that we do every day for our clients is brand strategy. And, we have created this thing, this workflow called Grounded Intelligence that is basically creates synthetic segmentation and personas, does qualitative interviews, like helps you develop a research guide, helps you then qualitatively interview your personas, and then do that at scale. So now you're getting thousands of interviews, that are being performed synthetically. And along the process, we're infusing it with real humans and real strategists, course correcting, adding stakeholder interviews, adding customer interviews to course correct the personas so that we get to a really strong outcome. And, what was really interesting, we actually, after we ran this a couple times, and we actually did a comparative with real data. And then we used Gemini for it. And we asked Gemini, how accurate was your response? And it said 75 to 85%. And then I went through it with our head of strategy. And I said, how accurate do you think this is based on you actually doing all these interviews?
Yeah.
And he was like, I'd say about 80%, so, it's really an amazing opportunity for us to accelerate the process of getting to insights. And, you often will do that insight gathering at a brand level, but then product level, often it's there's not the time to do it. There's not the budget to do it. So we're able to get farther ahead and get more insight and more directional power, in terms of the work that we're doing.
It appears like, I think it's an accelerator, but it's also, it's going to augment too, because like, I always go back to this. Like if I give AI 500 pounds of data, it's probably going to remember all of it. If I gave my brain that much data, I'd be like, forget it, I'm out. You know what I mean? I can't do that. Right. So it's like, and yeah, like it's not perfect, right? To your point, but I think we all know that like speed matters right now, and so 80%, like, hell yeah, let's go. Yeah. Right. I mean, if it's 20%, that's one thing, right? Where it's like, okay, it's deficient, but this technology is moving way too fast for that, I think. I don't know what we can say. Sorry.
And like a great, way that we're kind of operationalizing it as part of not just the workflow, but within that, we're creating prompt templates. So they become reusable elements. There's a great section in the report, in the guide, by Sunil Subhadar, is the head of growth at Anthropic, is the maker of Claude. And we're using Claude skills to create skill stacks, different pieces of knowledge, right, about how you want to act, and then mixing and matching them to get to different kinds of outcomes. It could be brain guidelines, it could be logic, it could be it could be a prompt template, all these different things that we can now mix and match and accelerate our solutions and make them more repeatable throughout the organization.
And I think taking that example and applying it to how our clients may think about it, I think when you're shifting a paradigm, like we are all in like a collective paradigm shift, and it never just goes smoothly. You're kind of like everyone's, every day trying to figure out how the paradigm, and we're building the paradigm, but also shifting. So there's a lot in there. And I think one of the naturally easier way into that is, okay, well, how can we use it to increase productivity? Like, how can we use these tools to make ourselves more productive? And while what Adam just described does have productivity aspects to it, the main goal of it is not how can we become more productive? It's how can we become more customer obsessed? And so as the leaders, we are the leaders of this. I don't know who, I always say no one's coming to save you. Like it's us. Yeah. It's us. We get to decide.
Aliens aren't coming? I thought they would.
And if you're waiting around for someone to come bring it to you, then you're at the end of the, you're out of the game. And so the companies that are, when we were talking to Elaine from Nike, the companies that are pulling ahead aren't the ones that are focusing, myopically on how can we automate to get more done faster. They're really saying, how can we be more customer? How can we make sure that when we design the way that we use these tools, that it is in service of being customer obsessed and understanding our customer better, not removing them from the equation, not doing that, but how can we ensure that, we are designing it so that the customer has a better experience. And there will be productivity aspects to that, but it's a much nobler goal, if you will. And if you ask any marketer, any good marketer is going to tell you that putting the customer first is the way to go. And so none of these concepts are new. It's not new to have experimentation velocity. It's not new to have an operating system. It's not new to be a customer obsessed. It's really about, as we're shifting a paradigm, how are we taking mindsets that are tried and true and apply them to a new paradigm in which they might not be as obvious where that lands and where that sits. That makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, it makes total sense. I love it. I think it's really interesting, right? Because it's that this is what I talk about a lot in the speaking I did last year. Is just that the pace of change is remarkable. Like, think of what we've had to live through. All of us have lived through kind of the mobile, social, whatever revolutions, we want to call it. And this change is just much faster, much more dramatic. We frankly don't know where it's going to go. We're just in the generative AI period, right? We don't really know where sentient beings are going to take us. Truly, I mean, I know people are laughing about Claude bot and all that, but like, we truly don't know like when these things have their own intentions and all that. Like, that's not really apparent, right, yet. So we're on the cusp of it, frankly. We're at like, I think Rashad talks about this, we're like at 5% of all AI, technology in terms of what the capabilities are. So it's early days. Tell me a little bit about, and we'll probably have to end here after this, but like, tell me a little bit about That sounds right. Operating systems, that's great. I love the training that you guys are talking about to make it repeatable. And so what's holding it? Like, what's the fear? Like, there's a line in the report where you're talking about, like, you just asked the audience, like, what are you guys scared of? I want to hear that, but also, like, what are our associates scared of? Like, the people who are like hands-on keyboard, getting stuff done all day. What's that like? What's that temperature like?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because when we were talking to the marketing leadership, fears are around, am I going to be able to learn that? Like you just said, there's quite literally so much change every day that it's actually physically impossible as a human to to take it all in and understand it. Like, am I going to be able to do that? Am I focusing on the right thing? Have I picked the right, have I chosen the right way to go? And which is why, and when you have a fear around that, it's harder to remember experimentation velocity when you're in a fear-based mindset. Reminding 100%. Yourself, oh, I don't have to choose one thing. I can try a bunch of things and approach it that way is it seems like a simple no duh sort of thing. But when you're in a place where you don't know what's going on and you have a fear as a leader and you want to be all of that, choosing to do things to have experimentation velocity is sometimes it's not easy to find that as a solution. And so working with leaders to do that, also leaders, these things do need training. Yes, you can go in and mess with Claude. You can go in and mess with all these things. And how are our leaders equipping those associates, team members, managers to be able to be successful in a world where they're afraid their job might become non-existent? Yeah. And so when you're working in an organization and your leader is embracing these tools and embracing that change and that velocity, you feel more along for the ride and more like your fingerprints get to be on it. You get to be involved in what it becomes versus this is going to land on me and I'm going to get told I don't have a job anymore. And I do think that requires certain types of leadership qualities like curiosity, like not being such a specialist that, you can only, you're only responsible for doing one thing that if it happens to be repeatable might not be the best. And so encouraging the people on your teams to, hey, how can we start to think about your role differently? How can we start to think about what you might do differently and using it as development opportunities and experiences and training opportunities for team members to be more involved in it rather than a victim of it.
Yeah.
And so I really do think that mindset comes down from the top, and talking about fear, giving it a name, remove power from it. So when we have these conversations and the leaders say, here's a fear that I have, we're able to kind of help move it out of the way so that they're able to lead in from a better spot too.
Yeah.
I think it's an opportunity right now or a moment where we all need to kind of reimagine ourselves. I'm working on this book called Tai Chi for Business, and I was just writing a chapter where I'm basically, explaining the principles of Tai Chi and how they relate to different aspects of our lives. And I'm doing a chapter on, well, what does that mean in an AI world? And I had this copywriter I was talking to, and I was like, how are you using AI in your work? And he's like, oh, I never use AI. I'm a great writer. AI sucks, can't write well. I was like, that's a really bad idea, because you can't ignore facts. Like, AI is there. So you can either use it as a tool or be threatened by it, right? And I said, maybe rather than, saying like it's a competitor, maybe think of yourself as not just a writer, but a storyteller. And you can take a story deeper, right? You can rather than present a written script, you can present a voiceover. Like we recently did an AI video for a client, right? Got from a brief to or from an SOW to a brief written script in 4 days to an approved script, voiceover, and music, right? Where that would have taken at least 4 weeks in the past in terms of the way that you have that iterative process. That's superpowers, right? And in the past, we would have just presented the script, talked about it, revised it, In this instance, we were able to kind of take out that, need for our client to have, to be able to envision the outcome by sharing the outcome from from the very first presentation. So I think there's some really great ways to approach how do you overcome some of these fears and navigate them in your lives and your career.
Yeah, I love it. It's just embracing it and reinvent yourself. I love it. And just be open to it. And I think one of the things when we study fear is that we know that fear actually shuts us down to any, to more creativity, right? Because when fear happens, the part of your brain that wants to control outcomes, that wants to identify and analyze things in terms of how it can escape is what turns on, right?
Yeah, you're in your amygdala versus your prefrontal cortex. Yeah, your lizard brain.
Your exploration, your creativity, all that goes away, right? So we know that. Well, good. Well, let's ask a fun question at the end so we can close it out here. By the way, thanks so much for coming. This was awesome. Let's hear about that Tai Chi book maybe on the next time. And but look, we're coming on the Super Bowl, so by the time this gets out there, we probably won't. We're recording on February 4th. But what ad are you excited about? Because we're all in marketing for the Super Bowl. Let's end with that.
That's a good one.
I'm excited. I saw one that was, I'm going to say the beer company wrong. There's a beer company who's making there's a horse and it's all about the horse and like becomes friends with the eagle and it has wings and it's gorgeous. And I saw a little snip of that. I'm very excited to see how that lands in the moment while I'm like in the Super Bowl vibe. And I'm how is that ad going to really land for me? That's the one I'm excited about. And it doesn't have a celebrity in it. And I'm excited that it doesn't. So
I'm really interested, being in this kind of mindset of AI, like OpenAI and Anthropic are both doing their first Super Bowl commercials. I hear Anthropic is taking swipes at OpenAI and in their commercial. So I'm looking forward to that. They had the Bud Bowl. I'm looking for the AI, the Brain Bowl.
I love it. Nice.
Adam looks the conflict. I want to see horses fly. It takes all kinds, it takes all sorts of people.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good. Yeah. I don't know what I'm looking forward to. I saw on YouTube the other day the Sarah V commercial came up again, the one with Michael Cera, and I was like, man, that was brilliant. I love that ad. It's so good. All right. Well, hopefully some good stuff comes up. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate you guys being on. I really do.
All right.
So see you
Thanks
later.
for having us.
Thanks, Akash.